Tabi, can you talk a little bit about, actually, I remember it was, I don't know how long ago it was it a year and a half ago or so? We were sitting in this room, and I remember I was talking to you and your husband, and we were talking about, like, just mission and our neighbors and things like that. And I remember literally you guys were saying, you're like, I don't think we're doing this neighbor mission thing, being the best friend to see, like, I don't know, like, I don't think we're doing it. And I was like, no, like, God's probably working, like, just keep going. And obviously a lot of crazy things have happened since then. Can you just talk a little bit about then to now and how the Holy Spirit's worked through all that?
Yeah, so when we started the Holy Spirit series, I've been like secretly hoping it will never end. But this whole series has really just prompted me to be praying more, and to be intentional about praying about important things, being people. And so as we've kind of, Sammy, you talked about like the fingerprints of the Holy Spirit, and just kind of looking back and seeing, oh, look at all the things that he's done. And so after baptisms happened, the next day I was just thinking about the journey of prayer and the Holy Spirit over the past couple of years. And it took me back like almost 6 years ago to when we were meeting at the Sylvania Senior Center for, I don't know what we call them, Soma nights or core team something. But Jonathan Wynn was doing these like trainings on like how to love your neighbors, how to practically love them, how to reach out to them, just all these things about your neighbors. And I just remember thinking like, I don't think that's ever gonna be us. And not because we didn't want it to be, but like we didn't feel like there were any open doors with our neighbors. We'd had no relationships with our neighbors. And it was like we had been there for a couple years, and it's like awkward. Like, do you now go introduce yourself to people? Yeah. Like, hey, we've been here for 2 years. Nice to meet you. But then we also just had that excuse of like, we don't have time. So fast forward a couple years, it was 2 years ago because it was right when COVID started. I just felt really prompted to start praying for our neighbors, like multiple times a day. And so COVID hit. There wasn't anything to do. You couldn't go anywhere, so we did a lot of family walks. And everyone else was outside too because you couldn't go anywhere. And I think within like a couple weeks, we had met like 5 different families around the block. And Easter was coming up, and 2 families like had invited us to come do like COVID-friendly like kids stuff in the yards, like Easter egg hunt and like Easter games and stuff. So we kind of like started just getting to know some of our neighbors. But it's been really cool to like look back at those fingerprints, like that we were praying for that, and the Holy Spirit was working and building those relationships. And then last summer we met another neighbor, and we just felt prompted to ask them to come over for dinner. So we did that, and we got to just hear their story, and where they had been. And it was just really cool to each step of the way see like that, like just to know that God was listening and the Holy Spirit was working. And then just to watch Lance get baptized was like the coolest thing because I'm a crier. When you watch the Holy Spirit transform someone's life, it's so cool, but like it changes my life too. And that's just something that I want other people to experience because you just see how powerful God is. You see the Holy Spirit working. And like you said earlier, Sammy, like you can't deny testimony. You can't deny the story of what God is doing. And so just looking back at those fingerprints, looking back at prayer and the Holy Spirit and just how powerful that is, especially for someone who's an introvert who does not want to initiate with neighbors and other people, like just knowing that he gives you the strength and the power to do those things. And I can't take pride. I can't take, I can't be proud of doing anything because that's not my natural person at all. So it's just been really cool to reflect and look at those fingerprints.
So just real quick, just fill in the gaps in case anybody missed the baptism and Lance's story. So neighbor, you're praying for them, invite them over for dinner. And then can you just fill in the gaps real quick? Because in case some people weren't here. So that neighbor got baptized, pretty crazy story. But But kind of what happened in between that? You guys went from dinner to like baptism? Like what happened there?
It was dinner. Then our daughters started going to school together, so we would carpool. And we kind of invited them to church, but didn't want to like be pushy or anything. And so finally, Lance came, and he was texting Ted a lot, and just seeing the Holy Spirit move in his life. Not that we did anything, because we didn't. It was the Holy Spirit working in him. And so then a couple weeks back, when he told us that he was getting baptized, it was like, this is incredible. Like, to see that life change, and to see just the direction of his life and his family's life change was just incredible.
I love how you said that, that, a lot of times we think the Holy Spirit's going to change them, and the Holy Spirit does. But seeing the Holy Spirit change people changes us. And I think that's the part that we miss a lot. A lot of times when we talk about mission and other people on the outside, it feels like, all right, I got to do the extra thing because it's a nice thing to do. But there's so much that we gain even from that. It's like the Holy Spirit's like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but I want to invite you to be a part of my story, and I want to invite you to be a part of life change.